Boom, boom, boom. Here comes everybody. It must be 1 o'clock, right? Because it's time to start the webinar. So Morgan Carey is going to be joining us here momentarily. Morgan is sincerely, one of my favorite people in all of real estate technology. I have known Morgan for almost 10 years now, and he is in the waiting room. We're getting him queued up here to teach us today. So guys, let me give you a little background about my friend Morgan Carey. Okay, now Morgan is a guy, whether you know him already or you don't know him at all, you have to know that he toes a big weight. Like Morgan gets stuff done and he doesn't play around. He has built an amazing company. And of all the sources that we catch leads for our members from, Real Estate Webmasters is one of the most consistent providers. And if we look at our very top shelf, most successful customers, without exception, they're all members of Morgan's company, Real Estate Webmasters. So Morgan, congratulations on building such a great business. I've always been impressed by you as an entrepreneur, and I love that you're here today to share with our audience and really help them on this path towards building their businesses. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man, and getting my face up here on the on the screen. And no, it's a pleasure to be here today, Dan. And I really appreciate. I mean, obviously, we've worked together for a long time, and most recently, working together in partnership with the REW Academy, doing some coaching. And I love the idea of being invited over here to sort of talk about what we do. Obviously, because we have such high-profile shared customers, right? The top teams in organizations like Remax and EXP and independents and stuff like that, big brokerages and franchises, and obviously, we get a lot of customers because of those customers, right? People come to us and say,
Sure.
How do they do that, and what part of their success do you participate in? How can you make me like them? How can you make me like Chris Lindahl or Gary Ashton or whoever it is, these billion-dollar producers? And the pitch is always the same, right? For us, we always talk about, I mean, obviously, it's a marathon, not a sprint, and there are pieces you need to do. And I almost exclusively tell people the same story every time. It's a crawl, walk, run, right? And that's what I want to talk about today, is that it's everyone wants to do this, what they think is the sexy stuff.
I want 1,000 leads a month right now.
Of course.
Come on. I'm going to go from zero, no production as a solo agent, to $1 billion in production.
Next year.
All I have to do is just buy something from you, right? Isn't that
next year? Oh, and by the way, I want to pay $5,000 for it.
That's right. Yeah, naturally.
Right? And but it's to no fault of their own, right? Because a lot of people who have not played the web game, and we're talking specifically about internet marketing, let's be honest, REW and a lot of what Happy Grasshopper does is based on web leads, right? Capturing from multiple sources, sending them to a website, getting them into a CRM, passing them over to Happy Grasshopper to have great nurture and great conversion. And but people just don't know what they don't know, because a lot of people haven't had that experience, or worse, they've had an experience that didn't set the right expectation, right? And so I've put together a deck today. I wish I could buy something that would give me $1 billion.
Just it costs $1 billion and one. It's $1 billion and $1, Peggy. I'm sorry to say, but
yeah, just to be clear though, that wasn't hyperbole, but we're talking $1 billion in production per year, not $1 billion in revenue. So unfortunately for our clients, they only get 3% of that billion. But you know what? It's still okay.
It's still sizable. Yeah.
It's all right. But no, that's I'm going to jump into this presentation because I kind of put it on slides. But as we talked about, Dan, we're going to wrap. You'll ask questions. Feel free, folks. I'm not a questions till the end guy. So if you want to go ahead and post your questions in the chat, if you could make sure, just like Peggy just did, that we use panelists and attendees so other people can see the context of your question. Dan will help me out here and shout out any questions, and we'll it's fine to go off the beaten path, but I'm going to go share my screen. And I'm going to do this keynote here and hit share.
Guys, while Morgan is presenting, I'm going to keep my eyes peeled on the chat the whole time. So keep your questions coming. I'll make sure they all get answered.
Awesome. So can you see my keynote, crawl, walk, run?
Perfectly. Thank
It's
you.
actually hard to say a bunch of times. Crawl, walk, run, crawl. I can't do it. But yeah, so I've titled this Crawl, Walk, Run because this is exactly, as I said, how we help folks decide where they should start when they're thinking about their next journey in terms of internet lead generation. And basically, I put how Real Estate Webmasters helps build the most successful real estate teams through progressive lead generation. And progressive is an important thing here because obviously crawl, walk, run implies that you're going to go through a process, right? And Dan, you and I just yesterday talked a lot about process and how you build the systems and whatnot in place so that you can scale. And yeah, you can't start with 1,000 leads tomorrow. It's possible, I can get them for you, but you're going to fail, right? Because you're just not set up for success if you don't go through the right processes. The other thing I want to say about this is I'll be using Real Estate Webmasters examples exclusively because that's what I do. But these concepts, they apply to there are a lot of good vendors out there that we respect, people like Boomtown and Commissions Inc. and things of that nature. There are a lot of good lead capture systems out there. So it's totally fine to say, could I do this with my current vendor? Obviously, we want your business. We want to show why we're awesome, but we do that by helping educate. And if that does mean we become friends and we become partners later, that's great. But if not, I want you to be able to take these concepts back to your current system and apply them as well. So as Dan mentioned, my name's Morgan. I'm the CEO here at Real Estate Webmasters. We're just under 20 years in business. We are the largest custom vendor that does real estate technology and marketing. We've done probably just north of $1 trillion in transactions, and that's not hyperbole either. And so as Dan mentioned, we have a lot of really big customers, big franchises, multi-billion dollars per year players kind of thing. And so we have the benefit of really seeing what scale looks like. Just like in Happy Grasshopper, they have hundreds of millions of emails. So when their data scientists look at feedback in their CRM and feedback on results, et cetera, open rates, all that sort of stuff, data matters and science matters from that perspective. But the other thing about Real Estate Webmasters is we also have a division that works with individual agents and with those people who are more relatable to the people who are starting their journey, small teams, individual agents. And we're actually even going to be using my wife as an example here. She just got into real estate last year. She's in her second year of real estate. She's a single agent, et cetera. And so I'll be using examples from both sides of the spectrum so that you understand what that looks like when you get there on the run phase and what it looks like in the beginning. So what we'll cover today, basically crawl, walk, and run is crawl, you're just starting out, maybe you're budget constrained, you don't have an established brand, maybe you're new or you're new to the web. You don't have to be a brand new agent for you to need to start at the crawl phase, right? It really means that you're just getting started with taking the internet seriously. Walk, you are more established, you have processes in place, maybe you have a brand that is working or needs a refresh. You have some follow-up systems like the Happy Grasshopper platform or AW CRM. And then run is really, you're looking to be that billion-dollar player, right? You're looking to be that market leader. You have significant resources and you are a very sophisticated marketer, right? It means you kind of have to have a lot of experience. It's not enough to have Dan's experience and my experience working for you. You must have experience yourself if you're going to take on the kinds of projects that fall in the run category. Okay. So crawl. The goal in the crawl phase is to get your lead generation established as quickly as possible. And in this phase, we recommend going completely out of the box, right? No customizations, no long content strategies. And I put here in bold just the basics, right? Nobody ever wants to do this because they've already done a bunch of research. And of course, your creative people, your marketers, your salespeople, you have ideas and you have a little bit of money and you've decided to take on the internet, right? And you're like, okay, I need my ideas because my ideas are what's going to make me successable.
So I got to interrupt here because I'm on this like health journey, right? Where once a year I'm going to lose 30 pounds again, right? And we're talking about the basics here. You got to move your body more. You got to consume less calories. There's no magic there. And yet your results are going to directly be impacted by whether or not you do those things.
Right.
And you know, I love the simplicity of this, right? Notice none of this is new, none of this is surprising or shocking. It's the reality that we all have to embrace. And we never get to run, right? We never get to that stage unless we've mastered the crawl phase.
Well, and
So
it's interesting because you can use the health analogy quite well. I mean, our buddy Jared James says, you want to lose weight, diet and exercise, diet and exercise, diet and exercise.
yeah,
Right? He says it from the stage all the time. You know, forget that guy because he's skinny, but I hate that guy.
because of diet and exercise, by the way. I mean, come
But you
on.
know what he doesn't do is he doesn't go chase all kinds of weird, crazy fads or ideas, and he doesn't try to reinvent weight loss or health.
Mm-hmm.
He goes for a walk, goes for a run, right?
Yeah.
Like whatever. And so, but those things are sexy, they're interesting, right? We want to do them because, but really, if you don't have the fundamentals, all of those things will fail and frustrate you, right?
Sure.
So for us in our world, exclusively pay-per-click marketing, a great IDX website, and a great CRM, right? And as I said, there are lots of them out there, right? Your CRM might be Happy Grasshopper, it might be Follow Up Boss, right? It might be Salesforce. There's lots of good CRMs out there. You know, like I said, there's, you know, Commissions Inc. or Boomtown or REW. Any IDX website that's set up for proper lead generation is a great place to start. And of course, pay-per-click marketing, you know, we advocate Google, super easy, you know, super controllable, etc. So let's talk about that. Here's an example for anyone who doesn't know, and go ahead and post in the chat if you don't use pay-per-click marketing right now or you don't know what it is. Wait a second for that.
Yeah, so if you've got pay-per-click running, say yes. Peggy says yes. If you don't have pay-per-click running, say no. Tammy's got question marks. Ian's not using it. Peggy's not using it. Edward's not using it. Kyle's using it. And he's using Google. That's great. Stuart's using it. Krista's using it. So
That's great.
Good. We've got a nice mix.
Got a nice mix. Yeah. So basically, we're going to talk specifically about Google because they have the best tools, and quite frankly, it's what we do. So
yeah.
But yeah, so in my market, I mentioned my wife is, you know, an individual realtor. We're on Vancouver Island and we specialize in waterfront properties. We've decided we only want to go see nice, fancy $1 million plus houses, etc. And so our keywords are things like Vancouver Island waterfront for sale. You go to Google here locally, and you're going to see our ad on the top of Google, right? We'll see that. If they click it, we pay money. And then hopefully those clicks, if we have a really great website, turn into leads, which we will then nurture in our CRM. We use Happy Grasshopper content. I actually, I bought Happy Grasshopper content for all of our customers. It's actually getting, I think it's getting injected next week, which is great. So, you know, there's all kinds of campaigns. But guys, I love pay-per-click because it is so easy to use. Now, of course, for us, we use the Renaissance website, and I've put here, it is the world's best website CRM and lead generation platform. But again, you can use any good pay-per-click website, and of course, driving it into that CRM. And so let's talk about the results of this, right? So here's Carly's Renaissance, right? Again, second year in real estate. She works part-time because that was our choice. Right? It's we want to be in real estate. We like real estate, but there's only so many waterfront homes for sale, only so many waterfront leads, etc. She is clipping around about $1 million a month right now in transactions, and 50% of those transactions, or $500,000 on average per month, is being produced by pay-per-click. Yeah. And she spends $1,000 a month inclusive of fees. Right? Obviously, everyone this is what matters, right? The proof is in the pudding. Everyone wants to know, what should I expect if I'm going to make an investment like this, right? But if you are using pay-per-click and you're not getting these kinds of results, right? And really these kinds of results are going to be relative to the price point of your market. But if you're not converting at least 1 in 50 of those leads into deals, that's the real barometer, then it's because you forgot to crawl. You didn't learn how to crawl properly. Crawl is just learning the basics. You don't need a new call to action. You don't need custom software. You don't even need custom design. You need to follow up quickly with every lead. We're still old school in this business. People still like to talk to people. You call them inside of 10 minutes, right? Instead of 5 if you can. But you need to also not be afraid of texting because it's the next thing you should do, right? Happy Grasshopper has ringless voicemail drops. You can be doing drip campaigns, all the basics, guys. Before you think about anything else, just get the website, buy the leads from a good company. Again, there's lots of them, and then work the leads. You don't need to solution anything else. This website's already perfect. The CRM, it doesn't matter which one you use. You could choose the worst CRM in the world and it still has the functionality you need. You just have to use it. And yet we are conditioned to think we have to get creative or we have to do something unique or special in order to be successful.
Yeah, I'd like to do one sit up and just have ripped abs. Like that's really what I want. So
But I mean,
let's
it's
just have that, right?
right. Or like hang a weird rope from your ceiling and then try to invent a new way to do a sit up when the sit up would have done fine by itself. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think this is so important because, when I travel around the country speaking, I meet agents from every level of production and every sort of background. And there's two that really stand out to me. There are people who are entering the business who come to real estate as a second or third career. They've got all this professional experience and they want to know, what are the fundamentals? What's the blocking and tackling of what I have to master so I can build a really solid foundation in my first couple years in business? Because, as beautiful as Carly's results are right now, think of this 3 and 4 years down the road, right? When she's getting as much referral business as she's generating from the leads here, like that's why it's so important to get the fundamentals in place, because she needs to be able to continue communication with all these leads that she's generated. Whether or not they're ready to transact now doesn't matter. Those people can become members of her sphere over time. So
well, that's the thing about the 2%. 2% is the first transaction, right? You should not be doing one transaction on average per person, right? 1.5 at least, right? Keep those relationships over time. But the other thing, and this is going to get into the SEO when we get into the SEO, is that you also need to stick to fundamentals so that you can teach it. Because I'll tell you what, because we're also doing SEO, we have way too many leads. We're now onboarding referral partners. We need to be able to teach them how to work the leads, right? Because Carly wants to stay part-time, right? But we're not paying for them because it's SEO. So it's like, okay, let's get some people working. We have to be able to train this. We have to be able to explain simply to someone who doesn't know what we went through and what we learned, how to get the same results, right?
Very cool.
There's
so we're going to get messages. We're going to get messages in the chat, people wanting to move to Nanaimo right now. That's
Vancouver Island is quite amazing. Yeah. But so is Kelowna. And this is the other side of the results side. And again, guys, these are two examples juxtaposed, right? Carly, brand new agent, small budget, $1,000 a month, right? AJ, who's also one of our coaches, and by the way, we'll be on next week teaching these fundamentals at the business level. AJ, he only runs pay-per-click as well with Real Estate Webmasters. He has what he calls a teamridge model, right? So he has a brokerage, so, just for compliance and control and whatever, but really he runs his brokerage like a team. He has a full complement of ISAs or inside sales agents, right? But he's only running PPC and he only spent, and I say only because it's a big number, it's $50,000 that he spent last year in 2020. But of that, we tracked $1.5 million in commissions. So anyone raise their hand, say yes, if you would like to trade me $50,000 for $1.5 million, right? Yeah. He can raise his hands, right? Now, not to take anything away from AJ. AJ has run in so many other places with his business, right? He's invested in ISAs. He knows he has to pay an ISA for 12 months before they truly become productive. That's a big investment. He needs to build systems. He has a full service teamridge, right? He has implementation staff. So it's not a hand wave. It's not that you can just, anyone can pay me $50,000. Absolutely. Please do. That'd be awesome. Right? But not everyone will be successful with it because he has these fundamentals in place. He's at the run stage, and we'll get to that later. But Dan, you're going to say something.
Yeah, Stuart's asking a question about how many leads were generated for that spend. Do you know offhand?
I
We
could
could
tell
probably
you.
do some math, like average cost per lead. I guess we could just run it that way.
Yeah, no, I could tell you.
Okay.
I think we do about 500 leads a month. I'm going to guess, but
Okay.
I can go ahead and I can get that answer for you.
Okay.
Absolutely. But yeah, it is. It's not a massive number, but it's not a small number either.
Well, so that'd be about 6,000 leads over the course
Actually, you know
of
what?
the
I
year.
can tell. I can tell you. No, I can't because I don't have any. I don't have any deals. I just have the GCI.
Yeah.
But we run. Oh yes, I can. $50,000. We run about $8 cost per lead because we really
Yeah.
optimize this
That's
thing.
the
So,
math says $8.30. That's perfect.
yeah, so about 6,250 leads. So about 500. Yep, that's right.
Cool.
Now, it takes time, by the way. Pay-per-click and SEO as well, they both take time. Like pay-per-click is instant from a results perspective, but as you invest in it, as you get more data, as your spend gets bigger, and quite frankly, Google's very smart. They reward people for staying on the program for longer. Your cost per lead goes down. So you might start at $20 cost per lead. And if you use the 2% number, that means 50 leads per deal. So your cost per acquisition is about $1,000, right?
Mm.
But as your cost per deal or cost per lead goes down, your profit goes up. As your conversion goes up, your costs go down, etc. Right? So yeah, let's just talk about these benefits really quickly. So the goal of the crawl phase, obviously, to launch quickly and realize results just as fast. It's not for everyone, but the phase is critical for anyone who's lacking experience. And the reason why is, and I put on the right-hand side, speed to market. You can get something like this going with us in 30 days. There's a low cost barrier. There's no long-term contract commitments for things like pay-per-click in any of these companies I mentioned, including ourselves. And your budget can be in the $500 to $1,000 range per month, right? And it's measurable. We give you reports, and you can go to your CRM, and you can go to your Happy Grasshopper, etc. You can literally get the data you need to tell you very quickly whether or not this is going to work for you, right? And so it's literally, this part is a hand wave. I can't guarantee you'll be successful because you need to be committed to doing these fundamental steps, call the leads, set them up on drips, use Happy Grasshopper. But I can guarantee you, if you do the steps, you will find success, right? And so we love the crawl phase. It's an easy entree, and for anyone who is successful with it, it allows you to move to the next step. But if you cannot be successful with this step, stop. The internet is not for you, right? You might still want to have a website because you might want to have like a place to send people and on your business card and whatever. But if you cannot make money from pay-per-click leads, you should not be investing in leads. That's just it, right? Walk. So Walk is next for us. So we've started, generating some leads. We've learned how to use the system. We've got our drip set up. We've got everything going on. We've got some experience. Most people in this phase, they might have some logo that they got from Fiverr or something, but they most likely have not put a lot of thought and effort into it. It was probably something they got for cheap that they did quickly so that they could crawl, right? Which is a totally normal thing. It's fine. You don't generally go out and be like, I've just started in real estate. I'm going to spend $100,000 on a brand, right? It's just, you don't know who you are yet either, right? And so doing great branding requires that you've gone on a journey to understand your unique selling propositions and where you fit in the market. But there's a cost to it, right? Obviously, to do it well, you're going to pay for that brand because this is your name, right? This is who you are. And it's a lot more than just a logo, right? It's more than typography and fonts and colors and art direction. It's your promise, your voice, your values, all that sort of stuff. And it takes time to understand that. A lot of people think that your brand is your logo, and that's not what it is. And it's not. Adding a tagline doesn't mean you're done, right? Is there consistency in your messaging all the way through in everything you do? That promise that your messaging makes, does that come true? When, Dan, you talk about this a lot, right? You talk about how their experience interacting with you virtually needs to match their experience when they meet you in person, right? There needs to be congruency. If there isn't, then that's going to confuse the consumer, and they're going to lose confidence in you, right? They're going to feel that something isn't right. Yeah. So making sure you understand who you are and what you stand for is important. Then you can do your brand.
This phase is where we we have a lot of happy Grasshopper members reach out to us for the first time. Like they've been in the business long enough, they know this is something that they're going to continue with, and it's time to turn it up a notch and get serious. So,
Right.
our members who become what we call a pro member, buying a pro plan from us,
Mhm.
that's where all of these things, the promise, voice, values, perception, and positioning come into play, because it's not enough just to communicate with a web lead. You need to communicate to the lead how you're unique and special and different from all the other people that they might choose to do business with.
Exactly.
So,
And if
that,
you buy, and by the way, if you buy your logo for the same price from the same people who everybody else did,
right,
probably not differentiated,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
I would love to have a raise of hands. How many people have a triangle or a little house icon above their logo? If you have that, maybe a little square window in the triangle, if you have that, you probably don't have a brand,
mm,
to be honest, right? Because that's what happens, and that's totally acceptable. That is in the crawl phase, you need something. You don't have a lot of budget, you want to get something out there, you want to move, totally acceptable. But if you're going to make a commitment to your brand, then understand that your brand defines who you are to the consumer.
yeah,
And if you are not, I mean, if you are exactly like everyone else, then please go buy that cheap logo,
mm,
because that's going to say to the market, I'm exactly like everyone else, right? But if you want something different, then you first need to understand who you are and help and define that, right? And then the second part of walk. So we've got this beautiful brand, and I'll go back to AJ and Carly's site. Quite frankly, they both have very well established brands, right? Beautiful logos, color schemes, brand guidelines, etc. Um, and so um, once you establish that brand, the next thing you're going to want to do is, that you're good at web leads, you've got it sorted out. You probably want more volume. You're probably looking at growing, or maybe you just want, this is something that you want to do. So you'd love to optimize that cost. You'd like to make your leads cheaper, right? Because if it's the same quality of lead and you can pay less for it, anyone not want that? Right? Like, and so this is where search engine optimization comes in. But there's a couple of reasons why you don't do search engine optimization first. The first one is it's really expensive, right? In the REW world, like, this isn't one of those things where there's a lot of good companies. There's a lot of good companies who do pay-per-click marketing. There's only 2 or 3 in the world that do good real estate SEO. I'll only name one of them. I don't think I need to, but it's us. But there's a couple more, but all of them charge thousands of dollars per month, and they should. And the
mm,
reason why is SEO is complex and it's labor-based. There's no way around it. You must have professionally written, unique content. You have to do keyword research. There's technical optimization. There's link building. It is just expensive to do,
mhm,
right? And so first of all, you have to have the money, which Crawl helps you do, because we have this concept of house money, right? Once you start converting really well, all of a sudden you've got a 5 or 10x return. You have the money to be able to make investments. But even if you had the money, you need to make sure that it's going to be money well spent. So, which is why you want to prove that you can convert web leads before you invest in SEO. So the
yes,
first reason you don't do it is it's expensive. The second reason is it requires commitment. SEO is like a 3-year journey to get truly optimized. It is not, when I say it's a couple $1,000 a month, that's for 1, 2, and 3 years, right?
mm,
You can't abandon SEO 3 months in and expect to get results, nor
yeah,
could you expect to get really great results in 3 months, because it's a compounding labor-based activity that takes time to produce results,
mhm,
right? Um, and so basically, and I got these backwards, I should have put this after my brand conversation, but this is just a graphic we put together that sort of talks about, this is brand, right? These are all your
mhm,
things, and this is us showing off that we just rebranded RIS Media and Real Estate Magazine. But yeah, back to SEO. Here's why you want to do it, right?
mhm,
This is what we do for real. I mentioned that Carly and I, my wife Carly, we want to focus our efforts exclusively on waterfront properties here on Vancouver Island. So every one of these keywords that you see here, right?
mhm,
And this, by the way, is a screenshot as of this morning of results we have with the word key, or the word waterfront, in the phrase. And so if you look at all these phrases, are these phrases, if you lived here and sold waterfront property on Vancouver Island, that you would want to rank for? waterfront homes for sale on Vancouver Island, I think we rank #1, right? That's pretty darn awesome, right? Waterfront houses for sale, Vancouver Island, etc. Right? I have 145 different phrases, all highly targeted. Every single one of those phrases, potentially a consumer who has more than $1 million to spend on a property on Vancouver Island, right? SEO is friggin' awesome.
Yeah.
Right? But it's hard to do, right? It's
Sure.
hard to get right. Now, there's another lesson here. What you won't see here is ego terms, right? Ego terms are area real estate and area homes, right? They're very high volume and they're very competitive, right? And people want to brag about, I rank #1 for Nanaimo real estate. I don't want to rank #1 for Nanaimo real estate because I don't know if that person is looking to, to become a realtor or whether they want to buy a $50,000 mobile home or what. Maybe they want rentals. I don't know. It is not what we call targeted, right?
Mhm.
It is. And so one of the things about SEO is that even if you could rank for the competitive terms, which you can do with enough time and money, you probably don't want to because
Mm.
the thing you don't have a lot of is time. And so you want to go down the funnel to where they're more targeted, to where their queries are more specific to what it is you do, so that every phone call you have is enjoyable and not, oh, you want to buy a mobile home? Let me see if I can find someone for that, right? Like if that's not what you do, you don't even want to have that
Yeah,
conversation
you
because
don't want, well,
it's uncomfortable.
yesterday in REW Academy, we talked about some of the bottlenecks in business and how we've got to sort them out. This is potentially a bottleneck you're avoiding through design, right? By optimizing for those long tail keywords where you know it's a waterfront lead, they're not looking for a rental, you're not wasting any of your time. You're not losing any of that precious resource of time helping people who aren't your ideal fit client, right?
Right. And
It's
you're
a
not
tough
hurting
thing to do.
your brand. Because
Yeah,
if you take a call from someone you don't want to work with, no matter how much tact you have, you're going to leave a bad taste in that person's mouth,
right.
right? Because they're
Mhm.
going to say, I phoned you and you didn't want to do business with me,
Right.
right? They will go to Google and they will leave you a 1-star review, or
Yeah.
they will tell their friends not to call you
Mhm.
because it wasn't a positive experience for them. There is no gentle way to truly pull off, I'm sorry, you're not the right customer for me.
Yes.
So the way to avoid that in the
It's
first
not you, it's me. Right.
right?
It's the, yeah.
Exactly. So targeting matters. And the
Mhm.
idea here is it's not, when I say ego terms, it's because of the volume. People
Right.
want to brag that they have 1,000 leads or they have 100,000 visitors, right?
Mhm.
Get over it, right? You only want to close, like, how many deals do you want to close? In our world, we want to close between 10 and 20 deals a year, right?
Mhm.
And if I work backwards and from that math and I go 2% conversion, I only need 500 to 1,000 leads per year.
Mhm.
That's it, right? So,
Yeah.
and in these 145 terms here, just with the word waterfront, right? And by the way, we also have lakefront, we also have oceanfront, we have like a whole,
Yeah.
plethora of terms. I can get, and in fact, I am. This is just the problem I was describing earlier. I'm getting more leads than that already.
Mm.
I don't need to do anything else.
Yeah.
So target
Big
your
problem.
effort, target, right? And so let's talk about those benefits.
So
Yeah, go ahead.
before we go further, there's a question from Stuart in the chat that I think is a really interesting one. He's saying, if SEO is a 3-year journey, what happens when we're changing website design every 18 months? And, I'll let you answer in a moment. I want to give my answer first here
Sure.
because, at Happy Grasshopper, of course, we pay attention to SEO as well, but that is not an area of expertise that we possess, right? We know for sure that one of the things that Google values is change. When things are static for long periods of time and there's no change there, it's hard for them to tell if that company is stable. Like, are they making any progress? What's new there? So one of the things that we prioritize for is making those changes and those updates to our site,
Mhm.
giving the spiders at Google a reason to crawl us again and get new information about what's going on. So that's my perspective, but I'm a copywriter at heart. I'm not an
Yeah.
SEO guy, so
Yeah,
would
it's a
love your
difference.
thoughts.
I think Stuart is more talking about framework though than he is content, right?
Mhm.
He's talking about when you go from a vision website to a Renaissance website, etc.
Mm.
And I'm happy to report, Stuart, nothing happens, right? Nothing bad, anyways, if you do it properly. And here's why: is that Google values things like there's two different pieces of Google, right? There's the authority piece, right, or page rank, and then there's what you do on the site, right? The page rank bit doesn't change as long as you don't change your domain. Please don't change your domain. If it's ranking well, you will completely screw up your SEO. But if you keep your domain the same and you're changing designs, there is steps you need to do to make sure you don't mess up your SEO, but they have nothing to do with the design, right? Design is done in cascading style sheets, which are actually hosted external to the actual source, right? So changing design, Google doesn't care at all, as long as you don't implement a new design that blocks them in some way. But if you go from an SEO friendly design to another SEO friendly design and you keep all of your fundamentals the same, your titles, your metadata, your file names, your content, etc., when you make that switch, you should not have a negative impact at all. And in fact, in your market, which is Edmonton, we have a great friend in Sarah McLennan. Dan and I don't know if you're friends with her, Stuart, but Dan and I are friends with her. We just took her #1 ranked website, or sometimes she's 1, 2, or 3, even for the big ego terms like Edmonton real estate. We moved her from an old custom site to Renaissance, and she's still 1, 2, or 3 every single day, right? There isn't an impact there as long as you handle the things properly. If you do change your content at the same time, that isn't about website design change. You could change your content on the same site and have an impact to your SEO, right? So what Dan is saying is wonderful, that you need updated content, but understand that anytime you do update content, Google will reassess you. So sometimes that change will give you a positive, and sometimes that change will give you a negative. And so the cool thing about being a marketer and we talk a lot about making sure you have enough experience to do these things, is that you'll know to take note of what changes you made. You'll know how to measure the results of those changes, and you also have to be prepared and committed to give up on the results. If you need to go backwards, if you spend a few hours on SEO and it gives you the wrong result, kudos to you for trying, but also be willing to throw out that investment and put the page back. You might have to spend an hour or two now putting the page back, right? Because these are fine-tuned machines here. That's what we do in SEO, right? And so that's that level of sophistication and that tolerance and that experience, is that you need to understand sometimes you screw it up, or sometimes Google just doesn't like it, because Google doesn't really tell us exactly what they like. So we kind of have to be constantly testing, right? And I'm sure that's in your world too, Dan. I'm sure you've made changes and you went, oh, that didn't work, right? So
Yeah, and sometimes it's hard to spot. I mean, it's not like you get a report from Google that says traffic went down because you did this thing.
yeah,
And that again is the benefit of working with a specialist, because they have the scale to know those things. They've observed it enough to where they can make the better decision than just a journeyman do-it-yourselfer can do.
exactly.
So
Exactly.
yeah, again, I'm going to just segue back to yesterday for a moment here, but
For sure.
the concept of leverage, right? If you're here at this webinar, your ultimate goal should be to serve your clients to such an extent that they think you're amazing. Just be the world's best agent, right? If you can be a fantastic agent, everything else is pretty easy.
Mhm.
It's a matter of knowing where are the resources that you need to tap in to do the sorts of things that you shouldn't seek expertise in. So,
Exactly.
for me, having a long relationship with you, Morgan, is really important, because, so many of our mutual friends and clients, like, we're part of a community that's all focused on how do we get better together over time.
Right.
It's a really special thing. So
Well,
let's keep going. I want to learn
yeah,
more. I
let's
don't
do
want
it.
to run out of time,
Let's do it. But I do want to make the point, though. I didn't just hire you because you're my friend, right? I want to support the point you just made. You are the best at writing great follow-up content for real estate. I didn't decide that I needed to become a copywriter or invent some new process. I said, okay, is there someone who does this amazingly well already? Can I just write the check? Do I trust them? Do I know them? Right, right? Like that's
Mm.
That's the idea here. I do have the budget and probably the staff and expertise to try to, go build a content engine myself. But I won't, because it's not a good use of my time. It's not what I love doing. There's someone who's already great at it. Just go do it.
Write the check.
Right? Right. That's right. Right. That's what a divorce lawyer will tell you. Right. Right.
All right, let's keep going. I
All right,
want
let's
more.
go. Okay, cool. So talk about the benefits. Because we're in the walk phase now, we should have already done the crawl phase. And the wonderful thing about this is the concept of house money, right? This is a gambling concept. This is a casino concept. When you can bet bigger when you're using money you've won, right? Like that's the idea here, right? And so basically your pay-per-click is kicking you out a few thousand, maybe even $10,000-$20,000 in commission a month now, right? That you didn't have before. And yes, it's taking a little bit of time to close those deals, but that's exactly where you want to be. You take a few $1,000s of that and you put that into your SEO. Now you're using money that isn't out of pocket to build your business. And you get to go from buying every deal, which is the concept of pay-per-click, you have to pay for a result, to starting to get those organic deals, right? Those organic rankings, people are recognizing the brand you've built, et cetera, and people are starting to come to you. And that's the referral part of the business that you were talking about, Dan. And so, yeah, buying versus renting, you get a lower cost per lead over time, because the cool thing about SEO is you might spend the same amount of money every month. And in the beginning, you won't make much. But over time, you get more and more and more and more results, but yet you didn't increase your cost. And so your cost per lead goes down. Our cost per lead is probably like $1 right now in my world, because we're really good at SEO, right? So you can then, if you want to, eliminate pay-per-click, which I don't recommend you do. I recommend you always keep your pay-per-click going, but you can reduce the spend, and then you start using pay-per-click for more important things like testing new markets. Because with SEO, you can't test instantly. But with pay-per-click, if I want to decide whether or not going into the high-end condo market is a good idea for me or not, I can decide to do a 1 month or a 3 month, targeted session with pay-per-click, see what kind of leads are available in my market, and then go, okay, is it worth investing? So PPC in the walk phase is still highly valuable because it gives you instantaneous feedback and data, right? Obviously, if you're spending more money and there's great ROI, you're going to get bigger checks, right? So, and like I said, house money for the win. And then run. This is, like I said in the beginning, everyone wants to start here and almost no one needs to go here. You don't, right? And again, part of it is just you didn't know. And sometimes it's ego. Sometimes people have convinced themselves that they are God's gift to technology and marketing. And until they invent something for real estate technology, it won't be right. And I got to tell you guys, you're always wrong if you think that needing to invent something new is the path to success or ROI, right? It's just wrong. You don't need it. I run the largest custom technology firm in the world that does this. And we spend almost all of our time talking people out of customizing because you just don't need it, right? And there are some rare exceptions, right? But when I talk about run, I'm talking about invention, right? This is literally spending a lot of money and a lot of your own time thinking about ideating and paying and participating in a process to create projects that are net new, that didn't exist in your marketplace before, right? Some examples of these on the major side are things like Zillow's Zestimate or Walk Score or Inrix Drive Time. And those things cost millions and sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars. And, it's some more bad news. You can't, because you're wicked smart or we're wicked smart or anything like that, pull off something like that for hundreds of thousands of dollars. You can't. It's just not how it works. It's not. Technology is complex. It is scary. It is hard to do well, right? Keller Williams just said they were going to spend $1 billion on Command and make it awesome. And I'm pretty sure they didn't spend that, but they spent a few $100 million. They fired their entire team and their CEO had to write an apology, right? Because it's hard. Right? Ouch. Yeah, 3-4 years later, hundreds of millions of dollars later, right? Like it's just hard to do, right? Some minor examples, because obviously we're talking about sort of both sides of the spectrum. Maybe you want to invent a new market trends report because you don't think the things that are out there are good enough. Or you want to do some complex map data overlay because you want to be novel and you want to be able to show, school ratings over top of properties or whatever, right? You don't need it and it's not going to move the needle, right? So I guess, and I guess the last point I want to make on this is not only is there significant cost to this, but it's your thing. Even if you don't own the code, because you usually won't, it's your thing. Your vendor is not going to pay to maintain it, and things will change, right? Your browsers will change. iOS will change. Machines will change, and you'll go, "Why doesn't this work anymore?"
Yeah.
Right? Oh, because something changed. We don't know what it is, but it's your custom thing. You have to pay for it. Nobody likes that. And unfortunately for us vendors, people go, "Why are you nickeling and diming me for this? I already paid to have this made." Yeah, but it's your thing. You also have to pay to maintain it, right? If you customize a car, a Jeep, right, and you decide to put a lift kit in it, and something breaks down or it doesn't work or whatever, or all of a sudden they implement a bunch of bridges that are too high, you can't drive under them, and you have to move the lift kit down, your mechanic's going to charge you for that, right? Because it's your thing, right? And I think
really, I think I have to interject here because this is a path I've walked, right? Happy Grasshopper is my 7th company. And prior to starting this, I sold a CRM business. Started it from scratch, bootstrapped clients all around the world, and had the great pleasure of exiting that company. We were 4 years old at the point of exit, and Happy Grasshopper is now 10 years old. So we were on version 2 of our code base when I sold the previous company. We're on version 5 at Happy Grasshopper. So, those of you who may be here who've been our members for a long time, you see changes in iteration over time. What you're not seeing is that it's a ground up rebuild that happens about every 2 to 3 years. It just becomes necessary because so many things are changing in tech all the time.
Yeah.
So, my question to me would be, what business are you really in when these things start to become attractive to you?
Right.
It almost like some of these minor examples could almost be business units in and of themselves. Like, unless it's an entirely separate entity, why would you even waste your time? Is my thought.
Well, and it's time, risk, and reward, right? And I actually brought this example up because it's an example from my world that speaks to the risk involved, right? So August 30th, 2019, I decided to partner with the government of Canada to go build an MLS in Europe, right? I wrote a check for $5 million. It was awesome. The government's going to spend some money with us. It's going to be great. There's no MLS in Europe. Does anyone know of anything significant that impacted my ability to travel over to Europe in 2020?
Can't imagine.
Right? The world, things happen, guys, especially like when you're writing big checks and you're doing big projects, they take a lot of time. And there is a lot of unknowns that you can never know before you start, right? And so for me, I'm still going to build a European MLS system, but guess what? It's going to take me 3 or 4 years longer than I thought and probably a lot more money. That sucks, right? But it's the risk I understand I take when I make investments in technology, right? And so, I'm using this as a cautionary tale, right? It's not an oh, poor me, right? But as an investor in technology in a major level, you need to understand that there are risks that have nothing to do with your vendor, your idea, things like, imagine if you had built a coming soon module or something right before NAR decided to change all the rules, and you spent hundreds of thousands of dollars and you were going to do a novel thing, right? Or your Boomtown 10 years ago and your entire business is built on a Craigslist auto posting tool, and Craigslist decides to ban auto posting tools. Congratulations to them for pivoting and bringing new value, right?
Right.
But they lost that option, right? Google is about to make changes and currently implementing changes that are related to cookies and advertising. So if you're using specific retargeting things and you've invested a lot of time, right? The bigger the dollars, the more time it took to do and the more time it takes to implement, the higher the risk. And so this is meant to, help talk everyone out of investing in invention until you're at a place where that high risk is worth a really, really, really high reward and you can see that path. Or if you're just crazy like you and me, Dan, where we're willing to spend some of our house money on creating new stuff because that's just what we like to do. We're mad scientists, right?
Yep. Well,
go ahead.
I was just going to agree with you. Yeah, let's keep rolling. This is great.
All right, so that's the end of my talk. I've got some, obviously everyone always asks at the end of this talk, what kind of investment are we looking at, right? And this is in the real estate webmasters world. We're about in the middle, by the way, in terms of price point. Our platform's $500 a month. There are things that are less expensive. There are some of the guys I talked about, like Boomtown, et cetera, are more expensive. I don't think we would want to do anything with anyone for a budget under $1,000 a month because we want you closing at least a deal a month. That's kind of if you're going to start crawling with us, let's commit to 1 to 2 deals a month. So $500 a month for your platform, $1,000 a month for your spend. I think $150 a month for Happy Grasshopper Pro. Is that right?
119 is the pro account.
Well, that's a steal. So you should do that. Getting to the walk phase, if you really want to do a really great brand, right? 10 to 25 grand, right? It's how much is your voice worth? How much is your next 10 years of perception worth, right? And in SEO, like I said, it's expensive to do because it's labor-based. It's $2,000 to $5,000 a month. $2,000 is fine in a market like Nanaimo where I live. If you want to compete in Miami or New York or LA, you need to spend dollars, but the rewards are there. And then if you're inventing stuff, it's unlimited. We charge 200 US an hour. We don't discount it. There's lots of people who are out there willing to pay it and they want to do crazy stuff and invent stuff. You can do small stuff like markets stuff that, some of those smaller examples, maybe 25 grand or whatever. But we have people who spend over $1 million a year inventing stuff. And sometimes it works for them, sometimes it doesn't. Usually those people are large franchises with, 1,000 to 30, like our largest customer is Remax Europe. They're in 40 countries and just as many languages, right? And so obviously, they're going to have different needs and they're going to need a sort of an innovation budget, right? To sort of accommodate their unique business. But if you are in the agent, team, or brokerage business in a local market, do not run at all, ever. Just don't do it. Save your money. Put it back into SEO, put it back into PPC, because those things, you write a check, you get a check every single time.
I like it. That keeps me from having to run the marathon.
Right.
Back to the fitness thing, right? I might run around the neighborhood once or twice, but I do not want to sign up for that marathon.
Exactly. I hate running, man.
Right? That's going to kill me. So Morgan, we've got some questions coming in chat. Anyone else who has questions, we've got a few minutes left to get those answered. So we did promise right from the start, we preserve some time to do that.
Yeah,
Morgan, are you able to see the question box here? We've got one from Dylan.
Yeah, let me get rid of my screen here and I can get back to my chat thing, the Zoom expert that I'm not. Okay, Dylan, right. Once we've gotten the lead to our site, what are some tangible ways to make your website actionable and get leads more likely to give their contact information? So Dylan, exclusively, without a doubt, tested over hundreds and hundreds of millions of visitors is access to available inventory. It's why they came, right? So if you can match, so when you go back to that pay-per-click question where, what were we targeting and why? Vancouver Island waterfront homes for sale. I match that query to a page that has nothing but really compelling Vancouver Island waterfront homes for sale. I am going to get them to register. It is just going to happen. Now, I'll do things like, for instance, I will not allow on my page, I will not allow any properties that don't have photos, right? Because my brand matters and because I want that call to action to be as highly effective as possible. I will generally sort by either newest or most expensive. Usually newest in this market because people are so interested in inventory, but in a more balanced market, we know there are a lot of tire kickers who love house porn. And they're going to be like, well, what's the most expensive house? I want to see that first, right? Everyone loves to look at that. And yeah, it's access to available inventory. Without a doubt, there is no close second.
All right, awesome. Thank you for that answer. I think, the temptation is, well, we use big flashy buttons, right?
Right.
Think of that like a condiment. It's spices. It's part of the meal. It should be there for sure. And yet, if we don't have the real sustenance underneath that the people are there for, we can't just serve them internet tricks to get them to register for stuff.
Right.
Nobody likes
But you
that,
don't. But you don't need to, anyways, right? This is the point. Is that if we know people will register to see homes, why are you trying to think of another call to action?
right?
Why don't you just put the homes they want in front of them, right? Tammy, to answer your pricing question, Renaissance is a 5K setup. The 1,500 a month is the crawl, right? That's 500 for the platform. It's 1,000 for your marketing spend. That's the crawl. Walk is the SEO and branding. So that's the sort of 2K plus a month marketing spend. Run you don't do. So that's the whole point of Run was to scare everybody away from running, right?
I hate running. Perfect.
Right, exactly. But yeah, 1,500 a month. That's your platform, your CRM, your happy Grasshopper, your everything, and that should get you 1 to 2 deals a month for 1,500 bucks. So in most markets, depending on your split, you're probably somewhere between 5,000 and 15,000 per deal. So you're going to pay 1,500 bucks at most for somewhere between 5,000 and 30,000 per month in revenue, right? So we want to target with our crawl, we want to target a minimum 5x. Whatever you spend, you need to make 5 times more than that. Otherwise, don't do it.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Solid advice. And thank you for being so thorough with the explanation there, because, if you're just looking at the dollar signs, it's really tough to understand if that's a good place to put your money, right? Which is one of the values in, being associated with Happy Grasshopper and with companies like Real Estate Webmasters, is that you've got so much credibility there. You don't have to hope. Like, anybody who's spent time trying to hire a contractor to do anything, there's always that question mark of, can they really deliver?
Right.
Right. And, so I want to, for whatever it's worth, I will say that based on all of the many, many people that I serve that use Real Estate Webmasters, I know for sure they produce results because we see the data. We're catching the leads every single month for our members. So
yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. It's great to have the confidence in a predictable result, right? And then the rest of the stuff, it's just the things we do, right? Our realtors get to focus on real estate and building great relationships. We get to finance net new technology and be crazy mad scientists, and everyone wins. And so it's such a wonderful community that you guys have built at Happy Grasshopper, and that we intersect with Real Estate Webmasters. Tammy says, what do we mean by Renaissance? Tammy, Renaissance is the name of the newest Real Estate Webmasters framework. And so the websites that you were seeing in the presentation, they are all Renaissance websites. So basically, it's the newest, the latest and greatest. It just came out in January. There's many hundreds of people already on it. That example I gave from Edmonton that's ranking at the top of the rankings is Renaissance. Carly's website is Renaissance, etc.
All righty. Well, Morgan, thank you.
I got to answer this one question.
Yes. No worries.
We are considering implementing a first look investor program on our website. See pre-market properties before they hit the market. Do you think this has any meat on the bones, or are we limiting ourselves, excluding leads this way? Well, again, Dylan, I'm going to take you to the beginning of my presentation, and I'm going to ask you if you are crawling first, right? Because this sounds like a new idea that you don't know the outcome of, that you're about to spend either time or money on. And it might be a good idea, it might not be, but my first advice is, until you're crawling effectively, do the thing you know will work first. Now, if you do want to do this, if you want to run a little bit, then, sure, if that is something that your consumers are telling you they want, right? If you're hearing, hey, I would really like to get a heads up because I'm an investor, and you have a lot of these investors you already know, you can test it out. If you've got the money, the time, it's relatively low implementation, relatively low cost, low time. I don't think it's a terrible idea, but I would say I would put my money in guaranteed results first. And I think that was the point. So guys, thank you so much for having me today. Dan, I believe you're going to make this recording available to anyone on the show today and anyone who missed it. So thank you guys. Have a great weekend. Happy Father's Day to you, Dan, and to all the fathers out there, and to all the mothers out there who may be doing double duty as well. So,
All right. Thank you, Morgan. Thanks, everybody.
thanks,
Have a
guys.
good weekend.
See ya.
Bye.